Hi, Dave here, and today we're going to explore the work of Xuzheng. There's not much about this guy, but his portfolio is freaking amazing. He does focus more on environment types of artwork, and he does have a very interesting. Because usually when I see environment concept art, usually the view of it, or the shots are usually kind of stable shots where they're not super dynamic, but because eventually when you do environment types of stuff, you kind of have to tone down the views a bit. You have to keep it kind of simple, right? And so you can kind of have more time to focus on the design. But for Xuzheng, I think he can kind of pull off design and composition at the same time. And couple that with his painting style, I actually thought he did kind of a 3D base, and then he would paint on top. But based on his, because sometimes he does post like his process shots for his artworks, he just has a very good sense of perspectives, or of perspective, sorry. And so his environments tend to look pretty awesome. And in a way, he has kind of raised my standards of what's possible when doing environment concept art. And I also like his painting style. He likes to use the lasso tool a lot, very, very heavy on the shapes, and kind of graphical in nature, but yeah. So here you can actually see him play a lot with the composition, but at the same time, delving a little bit on design, right? And you can actually see as he goes further out, or sometimes in the areas where it's not that important. Sometimes it's in the foreground, sometimes it's in the background. You can actually see how it's really more of just silhouettes, right? And you can actually see a lot of his bigger brush strokes, a lot of texture brushes to kind of just fill in those areas of whatever, And then usually he'll have this kind of focus of attention, obviously, on the architecture, on the design, and he has a great way of capturing, of simplifying the way he paints, right? If you look at these rock formations here, it's so, you can see the texture brushes being used and how the edges are pretty sharp. I think he does use the lasso tool a lot to kind of save time. And his work tends to look very, very graphical. And look at the shot, the perspective shot. There's a bit of it's a bit skewed, and it does help with adding a bit of that dynamic feel in his work. Even the way he does like the fogs, you can still see that it's a bit rough but clear at the same time. The reason why it's clear is because his edge work, especially when it comes to the silhouettes, it's super sharp. Not a lot of mixer brush use. The only thing that's usually soft in his work is whenever he does like the fog stuff, or whenever he does like the sky, but that's pretty much it. A lot of his architectural stuff is just super hardcore. Maybe some photo textures, I'm guessing, maybe for some parts, just to add a bit of oomph, but they could also just be texture brushes, right? And I love the way he does the lighting as well. It looks very, very realistic in a way. There's a bit of stylization. Is that a word? Stylization? Fuck. There's a bit of stylization, but yeah. And very, very awesome architectural designs here. Reminds me a bit of J. Cheo Park. He also has like this visual library of amazing architectural formations, right? Or forms. And look at how this one is in light and this one is in dark. It looks like it belongs to this world. Whoa, fuck. And look at how he did the background, just the silhouettes, big shapes, right? And even in this architectural thing here, it's shapes within shapes. And again, look at the sharpness of his edges. And look at how it's not even super rendered. It's heavily on the shapes, right? Very, very interesting way of painting, right? There's not a lot of rendering involved. Very, very graphical approach of painting. And very, very direct, I would say. This whole foreground area here of this kind of is this a house or a lantern? Fuck. But you can tell he does layer his paintings to kind of help save time. And look at the way he even did the clouds. Very, very graphical in nature, right? Reminds me a bit of a Jordan Grimmer, He likes to go he's very shape heavy, I would say. There's also this guy, I did an art review of his work. What's his name? Oh god. I think maybe fuck. I can't remember his name, but anyway, look at that. You can there's a character right here, and this old guy. Look at the way he did the environmental elements here. Maybe a bit of mixer brush is used in some parts to help soften things up, or maybe it's the smudge tool. Okay, I can see a bit of that softness, but if you look at the background, it's just one silhouette. Maybe a bit of mixer brush use here, right? The clouds, again, awesome. Even the clouds have a bit of texture. And obviously the birds are there to indicate some sense of scale. And he likes to add patches of light where the entire scene isn't like in light. Like a big chunk of it is going to be in shadow, and like a special line of it or part of it will be in light. And it does help add a bit of mystery. Even though you can see obviously the architecture in the background, it's awesome, right? It has a very world-like kind of feel to it. Very, very epic kind of feel. And the architecture is obviously very East Asian, Chinese, fuck. I'm forgetting my architecture. Right? Yeah. And you can see the way he paints like the vegetation. It's pretty much the same way he paints the architecture. Obviously, because the architecture has a lot of hard edges, it's going to be way more. There will be shapes within shapes. But for the vegetation, it doesn't have to be that clear, especially when you go within the main silhouette. You can kind of go a bit overboard and just kind of make a random patch of or random pattern of, you know, different values or hues, right? Very, very cool. Right? And look at the shot. It's a nice perspective shot. It's not super simple, but it has a bit of it's a 3-point perspective, but it's kind of skewed, right? It's enough to kind of make it interesting. It's not just a it's kind of a stable shot, but it's not really a stable shot. You know, it's more, it's almost real world. Right? It's almost natural looking with a bit of exaggeration, sure, but yeah. Now the clouds, he did use more of that mixer brush, I'm guessing, to help soften that up even more, but he still likes to add of that bit of texture on the clouds. And you can see the boldness of his approach. In a way, he is kind of impressionistic. However, because of the way he uses shapes with the, I'm guessing the lasso tool is his kind of thing, it looks clear. So if you kind of combine the two, using the lasso tool plus that kind of impressionistic or that kind of direct approach, you can get something of this. Your paintings may look like this. I mean, it will probably never look like this just because you're not Xuzheng, but fuck. Right? Look at that. Look at that. Not a lot of brush variety. Very, very solid. He does like the texture branchy kind of brush. And then a lot of his shapes are just solidly filled up. And the thing that really defines his work is the sharp edges, right? Oh yeah, he also likes to use sometimes a brush with color dynamics turned on, with the apply per tip option turned on, to get that sense of texture, right? That kind of variety. Oh, a bit more texture brushes here to kind of indicate or suggest that kind of water-like feel. I'm guessing it's either a smudge tool or a mixer brush here. But again, you can see a lot of the brush strokes, right? Well, not the brush strokes, but oh, here you can actually see more brush strokes, but the shapes are super clear. At least the edges, especially the edges, the silhouettes are there, right? Even the way he paints the characters here, these soldiers, right? The way he paints the flag, the way he paints the architectural scene here, the landscape, very, very heavy on the shapes. Even the clouds are kind of interesting. They go with the perspective. Ooh, right? It goes right like this. Fuck. Even the rocks, his rocks look even interesting. Fuck. So these are more like keyframes. Again, he likes that branchy texture brush along with his lasso tool use. Sometimes he'll use the lasso tool, sometimes he'll you can actually see him use just a broader kind of brush, I guess. Or maybe he's using the texture brush often, and then if he just keeps painting over an area, it becomes solid eventually. Okay, maybe that's kind of his technique there, but again, sharp edges. You have this kind of zombie knight that's super large, and these guys are trying to defeat this dude, right? So we have a kind of princess. I'm guessing a princess, right? Very, very nice kind of sketch, value sketch, right? Even the way he does like the faces and the skulls, look at how there's hardly any line work, right? Very, very heavy on the shapes. I haven't actually seen another artist that's kind of in this, or that I can categorize with Xuzheng, just because he's pretty cool with the lasso tool use and this kind of texture brush use, right? Okay. We have like an ogre in the background, and we have like they're probably discussing some kind of whatever. Oh, is someone trying to kiss here? Ooh, dirty. Right? Reminds me a bit of... He does mostly fantasy types of concepts, but I've seen him do a couple of sci-fi, which is actually pretty interesting. So this one's more of a keyframe sketch. Look at how he did the background here. Very, very heavy on the shapes. Right? Super quick sketches, and you can tell he does layer his work properly. You know, it doesn't have to be super clean, but if the value sequence is good, it's going to be understandable, and yeah. This one's more of a cartoony kind of environment, but the approach is essentially the same. Maybe he did use a bit of, maybe he did use some grass brushes for this part, but most of it is heavy on the shapes. Look at how there's hardly any texture except for that branchy kind of texture coming off from his brush. Everything else is kind of solid in a way, and maybe a bit of mixer brush use from time to time to soften things up, but not too much, right? Most of it is super clear. Ooh. Now this one, it's also, maybe he's a bit like Li Xingyan, because he likes to have, or maybe he likes to use the lasso tool as well, sometimes, in his speed paintings at least. Okay. Now this one does feel a bit more rendered. Like there's a bit more value gradation. It's not just like two solid or two different values. But it's still the same. You can still tell he layers his work pretty well, right? Very, very clear. Edges, the silhouettes are there. It gets simpler in the background, and I like the way, again, that patch of light and everything else is kind of in shadow. And even in the shadow parts, not a lot of blacks. He still likes to show off the design of it, right? But he doesn't overdo the darks. He doesn't have a lot of contrast. You know, he likes to keep it a real, or in like one patch of yeah. I'm not sure how he did this. Maybe he photobashed it. I'm guessing, but again, very, very heavy on the shapes. The only thing that's softer are the clouds and the fog beneath, right? Oh shit, look at the way he was able to do the background here, the sunset or the sunrise, right? You can see it in the clouds behind this architectural thing. And again, the perspective shot, look at how it's so right, you know? It's so epic looking, it feels good in the eyes. And it has a nice balance between that with design and composition, you know? Let me drink some coffee here. Fuck. Look at that, maybe a bit of mixer brush here, right? Lots of that branchy kind of texture. Look at the way he did the clouds. It's kind of a cloudy day, right? Maybe it's heavy in terms of rain, you know? It's going to rain probably. Look at how we did the shapes here. Still very, very clear. A bit of brushstroke use here. That kind of back and forth pencil-like brushstroke. But most of it, the edges, the silhouettes are super clear. Probably done with the lasso tool for the most part. And then after he does that thing, he'll kind of paint within the silhouette or within the shape, right? But again, it's a very direct kind of approach, but because the edges, the silhouettes are clear, it has that nice kind of, it's a good combination, right? It's a good combination. Excuse me. Mixer brush, right? Oh, here's this process, fuck. So he'll start out with a very, very rough sketch, and then he'll lay in some paint, right? Not even with the lasso tool, so. And then from there, he'll define the edges, I think, by painting. So not even, he's not using the lasso tool. A bit of value variation here, just to kind of help give that sense of 3D. I mean, look at the way he was able to bring these shit clouds. They're so shit. And now they're awesome clouds, right? Even the clouds have their own kind of composition. If you just crop this area, it looks pretty cool already. So again, the perspective, look at how it goes to like a point, right? Holy shit. And then, so he does things layer by layer, obviously, but so he does focusing on this area, painting more stuff. So maybe, he hasn't used the lasso tool, so Oh, you can see him use it a bit here. Yeah. Or maybe he'll paint an area, and then because it's in a new layer, he'll just erase the edges and make it sharp, you know? So it kind of looks like it was done with a lasso tool, but yeah. The point is, clear edges plus that kind of direct painting, impressionistic kind of approach, it will it will have an awesome result. Right? Am I right? Again, look at that patch of light here. He does it in the end after the design, right? After painting every kind of element, he'll do his special kind of lighting thing where he just focuses it on one part and everything else is kind of in shadow. So the design essentially comes first, along with the composition. The composition comes first, design, right? And then his awesome lighting skills. Right? Damn. Lots of hues here, which I like. The design is still awesome. Has way more detail. It gets simpler in the background, obviously, but maybe some photo bashing here in terms of texture, or maybe not. Maybe a bit, but not too much. Hard to say. But the architecture, the design is there. Pretty cool. It's the main focus. He simplified this whole thing. You can see that branchy kind of texture. This one is probably some kind of brush, custom brush. The clouds look interesting. A bit of texture, mix of brush, right, to soften things up. But it's still very, very broad in a way, or very, very, not broad, but very, very raw, you know. And then he does again focus more on usually his architectural stuff. Some more keyframe designs or concepts, right? Lasso tool, I'm guessing here. Very, very heavy on the shapes. He likes that branchy texture brush, right? And some kind of, it's a flat rake brush in a way. But look at the way he does the values. It has a nice kind of gradation or a nice sequencing to it, so it feels like you're in the actual environment. Ooh! And obviously he does layer his work to achieve this sort of clean edge look, right? Oh shit, they have a fucking rocket. Awesome, right? The values are good. The shapes are clear, even though there's not much detail, just because the silhouettes are clear. And it just has enough information to communicate that these are characters in certain positions, right? And that's kind of enough to communicate concepts, especially when you're going for more narrative types of artwork, right? And he doesn't even have to do or add colors, because usually the main thing obviously that has to come first is the values usually, right? Very, very clean. And it's pretty deliberate with the shapes. Oh shit! Reminds me a bit of Li Xingyan. I think I mentioned that, but also reminds me a bit of Evan Lee. I did an art review of his work as well. If you check out Evan Lee's work, he likes to use the lasso tool for as one of his techniques for painting. You can see the kind of sharpness in his work, and the edges are often clear, even though it has that soft kind of look. The way he paints is very similar to Xuzheng, or Xuzheng does have a similar way of painting to Evan Lee and Li Xingyan, right? But obviously Evan Lee is more focused in on like characters, right? Usually he does like a few environment concepts as well, some studies sometimes, but and he can also like bring it to a more softer version, or to a more softer kind of look. Just because he likes to draw like women with like mech parts and shit, which is pretty cool. But yeah, sharp edges, clear shapes. I mean, look at this thing, right? The architecture is so it's clear, you know? It has detail in it, right? Like you can tell the elements within elements. And again, very Asian, East Asian type of designs here. So let's see his tutorial here. Now I can't understand shit, but very, very rough, right? I'm guessing at this point he already kind of layered a few things. You can see him use the lasso tool here, right? In some parts. Very, very, not rough, but crude, direct, impressionistic, right? With the lasso tool use, usually. And then layer by layer, he just kind of clean things up. So in a way, he's also like a John Wallenberto, because I also like the way John Wallenberto paints, where if you check out or if you buy any of his tutorials, his layers look horrible. They're kind of like mine, where they just keep growing and growing, and there's hardly any kind of organization happening, which is very, very, it's a direct way of painting, and I actually like it. Now this one is one of his sci-fi concepts. Fuck. And I guess because his edges are clear in a lot of his fantasy types of artworks, it does have like it works even better when he does sci-fi concepts, right? Oh. And here he does have like a multitude of different light sources, so that's kind of interesting, right? Look at the way he did the sky here. There's this kind of planet, right? It's in space. It looks good. And it feels like it was done in 3D, but he just has a very good sense of perspective. Very, very interesting. A very, very experienced dude, right? You can see he gets rougher here, right? He just knows how to skew the or he just has an extra. He's very intuitive when he does his perspective work, right? So these are more like helmet designs, I'm guessing, or mask designs. Same painting approach, right? He likes that. Oh, he really loves that texture brush of his, right? Very, very solid brush stroke, right? You can see him use that here. And then if he has to define a certain area, he'll probably use a lasso tool, or maybe he'll just paint something on a new layer and erase the edges that aren't needed, right? Awesome. A bit of a suit design here, right? Oh, again, very, very shape heavy, right? Why is everything so heavy? Great arm mech concept. Now in the face, you can see him, he does paint it like normally, you know, where there's a bit of value. It's typical, it's a typical way of painting, basically, right? Look at the designs, right? The mechanical parts of it. It's so impressive. He can do fantasy and sci-fi at the same time. Fuck. And again, look at that basic shape. It's so basic, but the moment he decides to kind of add detail, it just becomes amazing, right? And whenever you're doing designs, you don't have to actually. This is another example of how you don't need to focus, or how you don't need to paint everything. It can concern narrative art, where even if you're focusing more on the story, you don't have to refine everything, right? The same thing goes for more design-oriented types of artwork. For example, if this thing kind of repeats anyway, you don't have to repeat the amount of detail, you know? It's kind of understood that everything kind of repeats. So it has a nice kind of look to it, and it saves time, right? We have like a dragon in the background here. Some characters. Again, very clear shapes, clear silhouettes. And within that silhouette, he likes to... Oh, the skull here of this dragon is a bit painted. Or it's not super like this. It's more... There's a bit more rendering involved. Not too much, but there's a bit more values in it. It's not just... They're not super close. There's a strong contrast, essentially, right? And obviously, it's part of that kind of light patch where he likes to focus in the light on. Fuck. No shit. Anyway, yeah, awesome. Oh shit, he did blur this part here. Makes sense. It's more of a keyframe, right? And I like his style here when he does his like signature. Pretty cool. I'm actually inspired to paint even more just because this guy is a fucking genius. Perspective is amazing again. The background is super kept simple. The clouds are kind of red, which is kind of interesting. Look at how there's a bit of like reflected lighting coming from some kind of other light source, maybe the moon perhaps. It's kind of a moonlit scene, but the city itself also has lighting, so that's pretty cool, right? I love the kind of blue, right? I think it's coming from the moon or something. Right? Damn, very very heavy on the shapes. A bit more stylized, but yeah. Ooh. The architectural stuff is amazing. Some texture, that branchy texture, the broad kind of squarish brush with some texture with that branchy kind of texture. The sky, you can see that it's I believe the mixer brush was used in a way to just help blend things out to make it a bit softer. It gets less detailed as you go further back, makes sense. In this case, even if the focus is kind of on this area and maybe even here a bit, it's not in light. You know, it's the focus is look at how the sky is dark, right? And then the light surrounds the area of focus, which is technically in shadow. Whoa! Xuzheng, right? And look at the way he did the vegetation here. There's a lot of like hues happening. There are greens, yellows, reds, a bit of orange, right? It's such a full scene. And I'm guessing he did use that mixer brush or smudge tool again for some parts, but obviously it gets even sharper when he does his architectural types of work. It helps to layer your work, obviously. The character here is kept simple, more about he's just there to indicate some scale, essentially, right? Nice moon in the background, it's kind of red. Now this one looks a bit more, there's a lot more hues in this. It reminds me a bit of Craig Mullins, you know? You can still see his love for clear shapes, right? But there's a bit more in it. There's a bit more... I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's more... Oh, it has way more hue variety, I would say. And it's very, very subtle. Like, it's all over the place. Like, this whole frame, this whole painting has hues, has different hues all over the place. Like, it involves the entire color spectrum, essentially. And it's kind of spread out evenly. Well, not evenly, but you can see that especially in the caves, or in the, in this kind of top part of the cave. There are like reds and greens and purples, a bit of yellow sometimes. So it's kind of a full scene. Right? Lots of texture. Right? Yeah. Another sci-fi piece of some kind of station, right? He likes to use sometimes that color dynamics thing. The apply per tip option helps to add some texture as you go along with your painting. It has the kind of palette knife kind of look when you're painting with oils using a palette knife, right? And it helps add that texture naturally, without even thinking about it, you know. Clear shapes, the design is clear, right? Shapes within shapes, a very, very graphical way of painting. And it helps save time. If you're trying to go for a graphical look, it will definitely save you time. But obviously couple that with that kind of impressionistic raw approach where you're not really into like the details and shit, because you can always do that later, right? Maybe some photo textures here, I'm guessing. Hard to say for the light sources. But fuck. Oh, he started with this painting, or with this kind of image he found online, and then he painted on top of it. Right? Look at how he took control of the image. He's not dependent on the image. Ooh. He's a fucking genius, right? Very, very cartoony, very, very simple. He can change his style a bit, but he always has that clear, raw, sharp look, right? Look at how he is so broad with his strokes, big brush strokes, with his square / branchy textured brush, and he couples that with his clear edges, usually with if not lasso tool, with the way he layers his painting, you know, so he can kind of have that opportunity to clean up the edges later on, right? Oh, fuck me. Again, the patch of light here, look at how he softened this up with a soft brush. Probably he did the shadow in a clipping mask, I'm guessing. Look at how he did the water. He just kind of made a copy of this probably and just blurred it a bit, right? I'm not sure how he did the branches here. Maybe he had, or not the branches, but the grass stuff here. Maybe he had like a grass brush, and then for these parts he used a lasso tool to save time. This could be a photo texture, hard to say. I don't think so. Most of it is him just fuck. Look at the amount of fuck. Look at that. Even the way he did like the sky here in the background, he just kind of left it as is. You know, he's just so confident with his style, and he just assumes that you understand what he's trying to say. Which is, I mean, look at the architecture. Nice sun here, right? Oh, there are two light sources. One is coming from this side, and one is this mini sun, right? Again, the composition is there. Couple that with his design. I mean, Jesus, fuck. Very, very cartoony, but a similar approach. He just kind of tones down the realism a bit. This one is more realistic compared to this one, right? This one's more South Asian, Indian designs, a bit of Islamic, because a lot of dome types of architectural details here, with a bit of goth in it, like not goth, but gothic. Sorry, gothic. Am I right? Branchy brush, right? Damn. Lots of colors though, very, very awesome in the eyes. Oh fuck, there's a fucking dragon. So imagine if he did creature designs as well. I mean, he's so awesome. And again, clear shapes, right? Christ. This was more green, more cooler colors involved here. Very, very simple. It's a lot simpler. You can still see that apply per tip color dynamic setting in one of his brushes to help add that texture. Even the way he did like the plants here, very, very simple, almost like a gouache kind of look, where it's very, very, very heavy on the shapes, and it's not really about the rendering so much. Look at the way he did the architecture here with the landscapes. It's so undetailed, right? Most of it is here, right? And he did kind of add this foreground bit of these characters along with this guy that's holding a pink something, right? Again, composition, design at the same time. Ooh. Okay, more gothic types of architecture here. Is this a plane? It's obviously some kind of fantasy world. It's a mix of everything. But the shapes are still there. Look at how it's not super defined, but because of the way he handles his edges, his shapes, the composition, it has that clarity in it, right? Oh, look at the perspective shot. Look at how crude and just raw it gets in this side, right? But the perspective looks amazing. The shot is amazing, right? He's the perspective kind of king here, right? And again, that patch of light, shadow, awesome. Look at how he does this area. Very, very rough, right? This one is awesome. You know, it's less saturated. It's obviously in a darker scene, sci-fi scene, kind of like a cyberpunk, not necessarily dystopian, but it's more cyberpunk-ish. Although there should be more like retro colors here, but yeah, futuristic, I would say. And again, look at his edges, you know, and I do like his design sense where he repeats the same forms all over the place, so nothing is kind of out of place, you know. Lots of kind of he doesn't like sharp corners sometimes for his sci-fi. He likes to curve it with other like straight lines, so it's not going to be like squarish for the most part, you know. If ever he likes to round a corner, he'll do that kind of that sharp kind of turn, like this one. See that? This could be some kind of custom shape, I'm guessing, but maybe he likes to use custom shapes as well, but it's hard to say. But I can definitely see his graphicness or his shape heavy kind of approach. Very, very awesome scene here. Maybe some photo textures for the posters, right? For the ads. Pretty cool. Again, the perspective shot is pretty awesome, right? You're seeing it from above. Look at that patch of light here. Damn. Patch of light here again. Awesome suit of this kind of astronaut. Right? I've seen this shit. This could be like a PNG or something, or if it's not a PNG, it's a custom shape. I've seen this kind of forms in his work, I think he gets it from, maybe, I'm guessing if it's not a PNG, it's from some kind of custom shape pack that he has, right? And then he obviously paints over it to save time. But it helps to add a bit of variety, you know, or a bit of detail that's kind of not super important, but it just helps to fill in large areas, you know. But again, very, very shape heavy. Color dynamics, apply per tip. Oh, he has this kind of round pattern, circle pattern brush for mixing, maybe, right? And it helps add to that sci-fi effect, right? Lots of noise here. Very, very soft background. Oh, he's kind of like Sparth in a way, because Sparth is so heavy with his shapes. Yeah, he's kind of like Sparth. He's kind of like John Wallenberto. He's kind of like Evan Lee, Li Xingyan. He's everything. Now this one's more, it's in a darker background. Nice complementary thing going on here. The reds and the greens. Whoa, nice bird. Nice dude. He's kind of just chilling, relaxing. Composition is there. Nice noise texture. Oh shit, where is his branchy kind of texture brush? Oh no. Very, very shape heavy. Anyway, again, the perspective, it's pretty skewed and looks interesting, you know? The moon, I'm guessing. Ew. The architectural design is amazing, as always. Ooh, a snow scene. Now this one, the main focus is obviously going to be this whole thing, right? So it's actually in light, so that's pretty cool. Look at the amount of... Look at the shapes here. It's so random, but it's clear enough to suggest this kind of... They're kind of like from a ship, but they're not sails exactly. They're more like maybe warning signals, I'm guessing. Maybe if there's some kind of enemy approaching, they raise these sails, right, in the sky. Color dynamics, apply per tip. Patch of light here with a soft brush, probably with the clipping mask. The shape is clear here. It's very, very layered. Very, very strong, not strong, but raw shapes as you go further down. And in the architecture, it gets a bit sharper, obviously shapes within shapes. And you can design a lot with this kind of approach. You know, you don't have to render the columns and shit. You can just approach it like a shape by shape kind of thing. Fuck. Look at the way he did the clouds, the sky. Simple. Simple. Now this is the last piece we're going to check out in Xuzheng's portfolio. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Apply per tip, color dynamics option. It's a sci-fi scene. The perspective is still there. He has more noise in his sci-fi, I guess, work. Oh shit, where's the branchy stuff? Oh no. More about the color dynamics, I guess. But yeah, the shapes are clear. It feels like this was done in like Blender or something, but given the way given his previous work, I think he just painted this. And he did maybe use some photo textures to achieve this kind of lighting effect, and maybe a few custom shapes to add a bit of detail. But for the most part, I'm guessing he just kind of painted it with, you know, with the proper layering system and with the proper, or with using the lasso tool as well, and going for a more shape kind of approach or a graphic kind of approach rather than a rendering kind of approach. Look at how he was able to suggest a city in the background. This could be like a photo texture that he kind of skewed, right, to achieve that look. Awesome pilot, right? You can see that kind of a cockpit with him inside wearing a mask, like his helmet thingy. Wow, look at that, amazing, right? So he's a pretty well-rounded artist. He could do characters if he wants. I mean, he has done a few with his keyframe types of concepts, but he likes to focus more on scenes, on environments, on architecture, on design, with a bit of that compositional, artistic kind of lean as well. So that's it for this art review of Xuzheng's work. Follow him on ArtStation. I haven't found any other links of him online. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep drawing, keep painting, and stay free.